All right, let's try that again. So, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Human Resource Moment, or as we like to call it, HR Moment. I am your HR practitioner and CEO of Menifield and Associates, Angela Hooper-Menifield. And we are here today with this week's HR Moment. And so, first, I just want to check in. I feel like it's been a minute since I've said hello to everybody. I know many parts of the country right now are inundated with bad weather, snow, things like that. So please stay safe, stay inside, stay warm, and do what you can to take care of you and your family. Now, today's HR moment, a human resource moment that we like to offer to help you navigate the terrain of management, leadership, and supervision with a little spin of what your HR practitioner would help you with if you were to consult them and or had an HR department, right? So that's what we do here. We do HR moments. So today's topic is all about the chain of command. And then we're going to take that thinking a little further and talk about when are those occasions when you should actually bypass such. So when we talk about chain of command, most of us see this as hierarchical. Chain of command is highly prevalent in organizations that have more structure. Military is a stickler for chain of command. So there are some entities, when you work for them, what you'll see is there is an expectation that people follow the chain of command. And so let me give you an illustration of what I'm talking about. So let's theoretically use an analogy of a school. And in a school, you typically have a principal, and some schools call them vice principals, others call them assistant principals. Then there are teachers, and there may be some other positions. But let's say a parent, for instance, wanted to have a conversation with the teacher about some goings on in the classroom. And they bypassed the teacher and went straight to the principal. It wouldn't be uncommon for the principal to first say, have you spoken to the vice principal? Because maybe the vice or assistant principal has the responsibility of dealing with issues in the classroom. Or perhaps did you talk to the teacher first? In a work environment with a supervisor, maybe a manager, and there's some hierarchy, maybe 3 or 4 levels of supervision. Typically, people are told to take their problems, their questions, their concerns to that next level first, so that level right above them, and then let them elevate it up the chain if deemed necessary. And there are occasions when people usurp that authority, skip around people. People get offended, feelings are hurt, and it can be almost like, literally a cardinal sin, right? Like, how dare they not involve me? I've heard supervisors, for instance, get angry because someone went directly to one of their employees and didn't talk to them. And so then they go have a talk with the employee and they say, hey, what are you working on? And it's like, oh, I'm working on this project from Angela. And Angela's their boss. And they're like, well, how did Angela give you a project to work on and didn't talk to me first, right? So there are tons of examples of where we see people offended by some hierarchical jump above or below, right? Because people often feel things should go through them. Even as a parent, right? If someone propositions or says something to my daughter, especially when she was younger, I'm thinking, why wouldn't they have told me that before they extended that offer to her, right? Because that's my thinking, that it should have gone through this chain, this flow. I get to filter that information, right? And so good, bad, or otherwise, there are many places where chain of command works really well. More so in big organizations, because think about it. When, for instance, I worked for the federal government, I was responsible and indirectly responsible for offices across the entire United States. And it wouldn't make logical sense for every time an employee had an issue or something they wanted to bring to management's attention, they came directly to me. On any given day, I could have hundreds of phone calls. And so what you hope can happen is within an organization, things are handled at the lowest level possible and at that level of authority that a person may have. And then if it can't be resolved, it's elevated step by step by step. And so that then minimizes the number of things that come up this hierarchical structure. However, there are situations when I believe it's 100% appropriate to violate any and all chains of command, right? Like, it doesn't matter who the boss is. It doesn't matter, what they ask you to do or tell you to do. There are some exceptions to the rule, because on the flip side, there have been situations where people knew things and told their supervisor and then waited for their supervisor to relay it up and relay it up. And by the time it did get elevated to the proper level, it had escalated, and the organization wasn't able to mitigate its damages. And so there are appropriate times to do so. So let's talk about a couple of those. Well, one time or one occasion that we can definitely, I think, all agree that it's appropriate to violate or circumvent, work around the chain of command is health and safety issues. So if at work we see something that violates our health and safety protocols that could endanger people's health and safety, their lives, the time to say, well, I'm going to tell my boss, I hope my boss tells somebody else, may or may not be needed. There's nothing wrong with still going to your boss, but that needs to be a short run. It needs to be elevated and elevated quickly. So sometimes how I did it was, because one, I want these kinds of things in writing. Y'all know me about documentation, right? So sometimes what I would do is send the message to my boss, but then copy all the other bosses, right? Because this is urgent. You don't know who's in, who's out. Think about it. I sent an email to my boss about a safety issue, and my boss is at a doctor's appointment and doesn't return to work for the rest of the day. And then over the course of the weekend, something goes awry. Maybe it's Friday afternoon. So this would be a situation, and I think nobody would be offended. And you can even say it in the messaging that I'm copying, manager A, manager B, and CEO, because one, it's late in the day and I want to make sure that everybody knows it in case this is something serious, right? Worst case scenario, somebody will say, hey, we appreciate it, but really, we don't think that's a serious thing, right? So maybe my awareness about what's serious or not, but I would always rather err on the side of caution. So health and safety is one thing. A second time, or another illustration of a time when it's acceptable to violate or circumvent, go around, whatever again we want to call it, the chain of command would be when the issue or the problem is within our chain. Right? So theoretically, let's say the person who is creating a hostile work environment, maybe we're reporting some type of harassment, whether it's sexual or non-sexual, and it's happening or been permitted within our chain. This would be a very appropriate time to, again, circumvent the chain of command, because more than likely our message may be stifled or not elevated to the proper level. So in these situations, if there is an HR department, go directly to there. Let the owner of the company, the CEO, know what's happening. And again, I'm a firm advocate for putting things in writing, right? So now those are two situations, right? Health and safety would be one. And the second situation where we would want to make sure that we are, we would have permission is when maybe the boss is the issue. Another situation that I think it is a good illustration of when to circumvent the chain of command is when there's illegal activity, right? In the federal government, they have, abuse, fraud, and misappropriation of resources, and they have a hotline for that. But all companies don't have hotlines. But what we can do is, again, ensure these things are elevated. Now, some of you are probably thinking, hey, I'm keeping my mouth shut. That's another conversation for another day, especially whether you're supervisory or non-supervisory and what kind of employee conduct policy rules you follow, because having the awareness and knowing of some illegal activity and not reporting it could be grounds for termination. So different conversation for a different day. But my point here is this would be another situation where I think most managers would find it permissible to circumvent the chain of command. Another time that I think is permissible, and that is, and I'm just going to say some of the time because I think there's a better solution for this, but maybe there's not the trust and confidence in the layers, right? Now, having said that, rather than circumvent continually and make that a pattern of behavior, I also think we need to figure out what's happening in those layers, and does somebody need to be removed or promoted out of a job? But that could be another situation where a person might decide to circumvent or bypass the typical chain of command. Maybe, because some of the things we don't also want to happen is for people to lose confidence in their leadership, and that can happen. So if we are taking over, responding to things immediately and not allowing the leadership to address it, we could also be creating a mechanism where the team begins to lose confidence in the leaders. So as the manager, so some of you, again, these HR moments are for supervisors, managers, and leaders, right? But also employees, so that you know how to govern yourself and get your questions answered. But let's just say people circumvented the chain of command or bypassed it and brought something to you as the senior leader. I think we owe it to ourselves in situations where it's not life or death, it's not an emergency, and it's not an accusation within that chain or that loop, that we allow those managers and we equip them to address those things, right? So people will do it, but we don't want people to lose confidence in them. Or if we're going to address it, then let's loop them in, so make them a part of the conversation. Now, in organizations, and a lot of organizations prefer to be more flat, and so managers, CEOs, owners will say, hey, I have an open door policy. Anybody can bring anything to me. And we like that, right? We don't want to have to send a message up 4 levels to get it to the right voice. But again, I think even within our chain of command, we can ask for people to at least copy those other supervisors, even when elevated. I don't like it when employees are not allowed to touch leadership at whatever level they feel fit. I think if I'm a good leader and somebody reaches out to me and I really think it could have been handled at another level, I thank them, and then I direct them back there, and I equip that leader in those layers or through that thread to better address it. But when we, chastise employees, or we complain about the fact that they, bypass the chain of command, we're creating a culture where we're basically telling people we don't want them to tell us things. Like, I don't want to hear that from you. Go through your supervisor. I'm a part of an organization, and, I belong to a lot of things that I'm members of, right? And maybe about 4 or 5 months ago, I remember the president asked us for feedback, but then told us to give it to somebody else, and said in his speech or his comments to us, like it was supposed to feel warm and fuzzy, I guess, that you tell your team lead or committee lead or whatever, and they'll decide which one come to me. Now, I'm just going to be honest with you guys. Even though I think I had something of value to say, I didn't do it, because I was like, so let me get this right. You want me to put my time and effort and energy in composing this and pulling this together, but you're also telling me that you have a gatekeeper who's going to decide which of our messages get above. That's ridiculous to me. That's a waste of my time. And because it's something that I volunteer to participate in, it's like, why bother? It's not my core job. But I tell you that to say that these are some of the things that we're doing that's stifling people from telling us the things we need to hear. So chain of command is great. It has this purpose in certain moments, but if we really want employee engagement, free and flowing conversation, we have to create some mechanisms where people can talk to us directly, regardless of how many people separate us in that hierarchical relationship. I've said this before, and I'm sure if you watch any of my HR moments, you get why I feel this way, but I'll just be honest with you. Nobody can speak for Angela the way Angela can speak for Angela. And so things that I'm really passionate about things that I feel maybe I have to pitch something or try to persuade somebody at a higher level, I have always asked every supervisor and manager I have, and I know my old boss says sometimes he watches my HR moments, so he can attest to this. I'm always like, can I come? Like, you can have the meeting with the higher ups, but can I come just to speak to the issue that I'm passionate about? Because on his best day, and it doesn't mean he's incompetent, it doesn't mean that he doesn't care. Other people don't feel about things the way you do if they're not equally passionate about it. And sometimes they are just the person that's in the chair, right? That's the seat. So chain of command can disrupt that. Or maybe there's going to be some follow-up questions and banter. Nobody can ask my questions like I can. So again, I don't need the chain of command keeping me in my seat. And I think as leaders and as managers, we have to be okay with people, and no matter what level of the organization they're in, speaking passionately, speaking competently and professionally about the things that matter to them and the issues that affect them. And so again, chain of command definitely has its place, and I'm a proponent of chain of command, but I am in no way a proponent of 100% chain of command. Again, there are many times when we should circumvent that. And I think an organization that lets people know they can always touch any leader at any level of the organization, create a culture that says to everybody, we care about everyone, right? And again, it's nothing wrong with still saying, thank you for bringing that to my attention. Let me now direct you back to, so-and-so. And because I believe they can handle that for you. But then it also gives you the power to check in with so-and-so, Mary, and say, hey, Mary, how was that handled? Did you get that resolved, right? So we're aware as the senior leaders, but we don't have to address everything. So don't be that leader either. Let people be able to touch you, but don't feel obligated to address everything. Delegate and allow things to be managed and addressed at the level of management or supervision that is equipped to address it. So if something can be addressed at levels 1, 2, and 3, then let level 1 address it. 2 and 3 just need to be kept abreast of what the handling of it was. So that has been today's HR moment from Menifield Associates. I want to encourage you to do a couple of things for me. One would be, if you have not yet subscribed to my podcast, it's called or titled The People Side of Business. It's a podcast of my radio show that plays every Thursday afternoon at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Feel free to do that. I really would appreciate it if you would subscribe, download, rate, and share. Secondly, the Pulse of HR podcast with my business partner, Robin K. Butler, and myself. Also, you can subscribe, download, rate, and share that as well. And then on Tuesday nights, the Black Entrepreneurs Institute Facebook show. We appreciate your support. If you know an entrepreneur, somebody that would be a great interview for us, I would love the connection to that as well. And then last but not least, our 30-day Supervisor's Growth Journal is available on Amazon as well as on my website. So feel free to go and secure that. We are actually in the process of getting it translated, so we'll have it in Spanish as well. I am really excited about that. So more details to come. But anyway, I just want to appreciate you guys. Again, we do our HR moments every week. We've kind of mixed up the schedule a little bit, but we definitely are here for you and we want to support you. Feel free to join our Facebook page or our group, as well as share those questions, those things you need help with as supervisors, whether you're a new supervisor or you're a supervisor who you're just burnt out from supervision, right? It happens. Look, it happens to the best of us. I stepped away from supervision for about 2.5 years, in my early 30s. Hey, Kelly, so good to see you, my friend. I miss you. And so, because sometimes we just need a break. So it's okay to do that too. But that's what we want to do. We want to encourage you. We want to empower you, and we want to equip you to be better prepared to lead and supervise your team. As I said before, it's not for the thin-skinned. And sometimes we have to deal with some things that are very taxing and trying. And so also being in a community of other like-minded people who are going that same journey with you can be very beneficial. Communities that help each other, address each other's questions, and support each other. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you, Kelly. It's always a pleasure for you to see you out there. I miss you. It's a shame so many people that we live in the same city with, because we've been at home for so long, we haven't seen in a long time. But it doesn't negate the bonds that we've created through the years. So take care, everybody. Be safe. All my friends in the South, definitely take care and be safe, because I know this weather has been treacherous, because you are not equipped to handle the weather as we are more so in the Northeast. We're expecting another storm tomorrow. But again, I just pray everybody's safety from both the weather and all other things that are affecting us at this time. So take care. Aw, I so love my people. Kelly is a sweetheart. If you don't know Kelly Taylor, you should. She's one of the sweetest people I've ever met in my life, and one of the people that I love to work with. She works for the city of Newark, so I'm giving you a shout out, Kelly. I hope you don't mind, but I think you're one of the sweetest people I've ever met. So thank you guys again. Take care, and we will talk to you next time. Bye.